Hey, what's up? I'm Ryan Schneller. I'm the pastor of Reborn Church, and this is another Credo Commentary. Hey, so of course, you noticed that this is the Chris and Ryan Credo Report, and Chris is not here because it's commentary. And one of these days, we'll stop explaining that because we'll think you just already know what's going on. But anyways, by the way, if you enjoy anything that's on this channel, please give us a like, subscribe, do the notification thing, whatever. It helps us with the algorithm, and that would be greatly appreciated. I wanted to address something that we talked about in a full episode a couple weeks ago, where we talked about Mike Driscoll and his confrontation of John Lindell in the James River Church thing, where they had an acrobat performer who used to be a stripper. Maybe he's still a stripper. I don't know. Anyways, he came in and performed at a men's conference, not doing stripping, but doing this crazy acrobatic thing. And Mike Driscoll confronted them and basically rebuked them and said, hey, this wasn't a good idea. He got kicked out of the conference for that. Then he came back and later apologized. And he and John stood side by side at that conference saying, hey, listen, it's okay. Brothers can disagree on stuff and still be in unity. Well, that's when we recorded the show. But since then, a lot of things happen. If you follow any other YouTubers, Christian YouTube podcasters, whatever, you may have seen some of this stuff that Mark Driscoll, I guess, sent a barrage of texts to John Lindell's sons and accused them of all kind of things. He publicly said some stuff against them after the apology, after they said that they were standing in unity. John Lindell did a sermon where he came against Mark Driscoll, called for people to stop supporting him, to leave. And I just wanted to kind of address my thoughts on this whole situation. And my thoughts on this whole situation is nobody's right in it. Everybody's wrong. This was not handled well at all. First of all, leaders can rebuke leaders, and other people can rebuke leaders in the church publicly when they do acts of things that are publicly. This was not a Matthew 18 situation where you're supposed to take and go to that person privately. That's for a dispute amongst believers, which I know both of these men are believers. But leaders are held to a higher standard. Leaders receive a stricter judgment. And so that was okay. But then after saying we stand in unity, to sit there and attack each other publicly after that, I don't understand what's going on. Why is it that we can't just say we disagree on something? John Lindell thinks that we can do this kind of entertainment within a church, and Mark Driscoll believes that we shouldn't do that kind of entertainment within a church and leave it at that. Why can't we just leave it at that and just say we disagree on the way church looks? We have some people like smoke and lights during praise and worship services. Some people don't. That's okay. We can disagree on that and just say that's okay and move on. But for some reason, they couldn't do that. And that's where I want to say, we need to get beyond that as Christians to get to where we can have a disagreement with someone, as long as it's not one of the primary tenets of the faith, right? We believe Jesus is Lord. If someone's saying, well, I don't know that Jesus is truly God, this is a different story. But stuff like this, should you have monster trucks at a church conference? Should you, do whatever? We all have our opinion on that. But the truth is, it's not violating any of the core tenets of our faith. So let's just shut up and move on and get past the pettiness that's within the church and get to spreading the gospel. Now, if you want to know what my opinion is, I think I shared it during the full episode, but I just want to say to church leaders, why do we need stuff like this in the church? Why do we need to have circus shows, acts, entertainment? The gospel should be enough. The gospel should be what draws people in. And if it's not, that's okay. In Luke chapter 9, verses, I should have come more prepared for this, somewhere 57 to 62, there's a record of 3 people, 2 that approached Jesus about following him and one that Jesus approaches, where Jesus basically turns them off from following him. So the first guy says, Jesus, I will follow you. And Jesus says, hey, foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And he's basically saying, truly following me is not going to be comfortable. It's just simply not going to be comfortable. So why do we have to make our church services entertaining? We've gone beyond comfort into entertaining. When Jesus said, following me is actually going to be a difficult road. The second guy, Jesus looks at and says, follow me. He says, let me first go bury my dead. And Jesus says, let the dead bury their own dead, but you go preach the gospel of the kingdom. And Jesus wasn't against funerals. This guy's father had not died. He was saying, let me just continue to take care of my father until he passes, and then I will follow you. And Jesus is saying, nothing should take priority over the kingdom of God. Not even our family responsibilities, because Jesus understood the principle that when we totally commit ourselves into the kingdom of God, everything else will take care of itself, right? We can get into that later, but that was a principle that Jesus had. And the third guy, Jesus says, follow me. And he says, let me first go back to my house and say goodbye to my family and friends. And Jesus says one of the more seemingly harsh statements in the Bible. He says, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. And what Jesus was saying is that the world has nothing to offer. Once we've committed to plow forward in the kingdom, once we've committed to follow him, it's with our everything. And if we look back at the world and we're like, I want to compromise, I still want some of this worldly stuff. I still want some of this, I still want to, be able to watch things that have sin in it. I still want to listen to music that has sin in it. I still want to, just have a lot in this world. Jesus is like, you're not fit for the kingdom of God. Jesus calls us to a higher standard. He wants us to be not of this world. We're in it, but we are not of this world. Our citizenship is in heaven. As leaders, we've got to do better. If as leaders, we're bringing the world into our church, how do we expect people to ever learn to separate themselves from the world outside of the church? Well, that's my opinion. I've probably wandered into places I shouldn't have, whatever. Anyways, catch us next week. Full episode coming again next week, and I will see you there. Bye.